So my last couple top 5 videos have been a bit on the negative side. You know, the first one was the top 5 worst cards of all time. The last one was the top 5 worst removal spells. So I thought I'd switch it up a bit, go in a bit more of a positive direction. So today I'll be taking a look at the top 5 best hero cards. And coming in at number 5, we have Dreadlich Tamsin. This is a 6 mana Warlock hero card with Battle Cry, deal 3 damage to all minions, shuffle 3 rifts into your deck, and draw 3 cards. And the hero power for this card is Chains of Dread, which shuffles a rift into your deck and draws a card. And to further explain it, you know, the rifts that it shuffles both from the hero power and from playing the card, they are spells that cast when drawn and summon a 3/3 imp on your side. And this is just so much value packed into one card. You know, this card is doing everything Warlock wants to do. It's clearing a board, it's drawing cards, it's shuffling imps into your deck. There's very few times where I'm not happy to play this card, and playing it right on turn 6 more often than not just feels great. And this card came out in 2021 with Fractured and Alterac Valley, and it's still played to this day in Wild, so I think that's a testament to its strength as well. If any card can stay relevant in Wild after it's rotated from Standard, that just shows you that it's a very good card. And this card still goes into a lot of Warlock decks that I played today. And coming at number 4, we have Zul'jin. It is a 10 mana Hunter hero card with Battle Cry, cast all spells you've played this game with targets chosen randomly. And the hero power for this card is Berserker Throw, which is deal 2 damage, but I will say ignore that. You know, I actually forgot what the hero power for this card was. I had to look it up because more often than not, this card is essentially just a 10 mana win the game. Basically, Hunter is whittling you down with spells and minions, and then they're capping off their game plan with this, which will replay all of those effects. Which, keep in mind, you know, a lot of Hunter spells will say deal X damage to the enemy hero, so even though Zul'jin states that the effects are chosen randomly, if the card says it's going to target the enemy hero, it'll still target the enemy hero. So usually, you're playing this card, you're getting a bunch of secrets, you're doing a bunch of damage to the enemy, you're probably summoning some minions on the board. If it's not killing them outright, it's putting you in a very advantageous position. And as much as I'm not really a fan of Hunter, I think this is a cool card. You know, I like the idea of whittling him down in the early turns and then slamming this down as kind of like your finisher. So in that regard, I think it's a success. And, you know, I don't see this card played as much anymore in Wild, but it's still a very, very strong card. Coming at number 3, we have Shadowreaper Anduin. It is an 8 mana priest hero card with Battle Cry, destroy all minions with 5 or more attack. And the hero power for this card is Void Form, which is deal 2 damage, and after you play a card, you refresh this hero power. And I have to say right off the bat, you know, this card did release in Knights of the Frozen Throne, which came out in 2017, and this card is still played to this day, which that just shows you the power of this card, right? That 8 years later, it's still being played in Wild. And the reason for that is the combo OTK potential. More often than not, you play this card in conjunction with Raza the Chained, which makes your hero power free. So you basically shoot your opponent for 2 for 0, play a card, refresh it, shoot your opponent for 2, and repeat. And you can chain out a ton of damage in one turn. And also, this card gets bonus points for just being fun design. Typically, Priest has those slow, drawn-out games, and this card pushes it in more of a combo direction, which I think is neat. I think it's cool to introduce different archetypes to classes that don't normally have those kinds of decks. And coming up at number 2, we are starting to get into the annoying territory, you know, going from cards that are very good and getting to the point where they're very annoying. And at number 2, we have Wildheart Guff. It is a 5 mana druid hero card with Battle Cry, set your maximum mana to 20, gain an empty mana crystal, and draw a card. And the hero power for him is Nurture, which is a choose 1, draw a card, or gain an empty mana crystal. And I think it goes without saying, a lot of people do not like this card. You know, mana cheat historically in Hearthstone is very, very strong. And the fact that this puts your hero at 20 mana is just unheard of. There's never been an effect like this in the game. And once you're getting up to 15 plus mana, it just creates such a power differential between the Guff player and their opponent, where you could just play so many cards and do so many things. You could pull off combos that are otherwise not possible. And keep in mind too that Guff would be strong with just the 20 mana Battle Cry, but it also ramps you and draws you a card to turn its blade. So it's just extra goodness tacked on there. Also, I did want to point out that the hero power was nerfed at one point. Originally, it was choose 1, draw a card, or just gain a mana crystal. So it would be a filled mana crystal. So essentially, you would pay 2 mana, but gain 1 mana. So it really costed you only 1 in that instance. But it was changed to an empty mana crystal. but still very, very strong hero power. And I think it goes without saying that I think Guff will be played until the end of time. I think pretty much every Druid deck will be playing Guff going forward. I don't really see any kind of instance where you wouldn't play Guff, maybe some kind of super aggro token deck, but other than that, Guff is finding its way into pretty much every Druid deck. And coming at number 1, it's probably no surprise, it is Reno Lone Ranger. It is a 9-mana neutral hero card with Battlecry. If your deck started with no duplicates, empty the enemy board and limit it to 1 space for a turn. And the hero power for this card is Reno's Hand Cannon, which I'm not really going to go into in detail because, let's be honest, you're not playing this card for the hero power, but it is essentially a 2-mana deal 2 damage with an effect that cycles every turn. And it goes without saying that this is not only the strongest hero card, but one of the strongest cards ever printed, period. This card is incredibly powerful. It is one of, if not the strongest board wipes ever made. And this card has resulted in a lot of concedes and frustrated players, no doubt. This card was nerfed in 2 ways recently. Originally, this cost 8 mana and it was increased to 9. And also the Battlecry didn't have that clause at the beginning where if your deck started with no duplicates, it only mattered if your deck currently had no duplicates. So there was non-Highlander decks running this card just because they could churn through their decks so quickly that by the time they needed to play this card, there was no duplicates left in their deck at that point anyways. But for anyone who doesn't know how it works, essentially you play Reno, it clears the enemy boards, but keep in mind that it doesn't trigger death rattles. They don't count as dying, so they don't go into, say, like a resurrection pool for Warlock. And also, this affects locations. It affects Sargeras portal or Raystraza portals. And if that wasn't bad enough, the opponent's next turn, they only have 1 space available on the board. So this is almost like a 2-turn board wipe, where it's wiping their board, and it's also not allowing them to recoup the tempo they lost from the board wipe. And as mentioned, this card is very, very powerful to the point where classes that don't even have Highlander payoffs are playing Highlander decks just to run Reno. That's how strong it is. And as a result, Reddit and the community are very upset and frustrated with this card recently, and I would not be surprised to see it nerfed again. But even with the nerfs, this card does still remain incredibly powerful, one of the best cards in the game, as I mentioned. But that being said, how would you balance Reno? Because I agree, I think the card needs to be changed. I do not see this card existing in this state for another year still. So do you think it's as simple as a mana cost change? Do you think the Battlecry should be changed? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But that'll be it for this top 5 video. If you liked it, give it a like and leave a comment. Let me know. Did you think there was any hero cards that I missed in this top 5? Or do you have an idea for another top 5 possibly? Let me know. But other than that, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.